My degree is in finance, but it wasn't until I actually learned from terrible money experiences that things started to improve for me. Seriously, from 18 to 21, I'm a September baby, so I graduated at 21. I was going to class every day, learning about money and finance and analysis. But after school, I was out spending money and accumulating debt. I was not implementing a drop of what I'd learned in school. And in hindsight, I've realized that the reason for that is because there is so much more to money than knowing what to do with it. Our thoughts, experiences, influences, and society all play a role. In this episode, I'm sharing why you don't need a formal education in finance to become financially independent. I'm also sharing how financial experiences can mold a life of financial security. In the very first episode of the City Girl Savings podcast called Big City Spender to City Girl Saver, I break down my money journey from start to finish. I'll make sure to link to it in the show notes. I won't go into too much detail here because that episode really lays everything out, but I do just want to give you a high-level overview of my experience and education with money before college, so you can understand just where I'm coming from, the most important points you need to know. And again, if you want to hear more in-depth information about my money journey, definitely check out episode 1. But growing up, my brother and I always had what we needed. So my mom had me when she was 35 and she was already established in her career. My dad was 26 at the time and had purchased some old oil wells and started a company. So they were both financially sound before I was born, and I'm the oldest. We meaning my brother and I, even my parents, we never experienced a lack of food, a lack of clothing, or a lack of shelter. And in fact, my brother and I were probably considered spoiled. We didn't get everything we wanted. We were definitely told no, but we were always taken care of on birthdays and Christmas. And, although that was our situation, and I admit that we were definitely blessed because that is not the reality for everyone. But even though that was our reality, like most people, my brother and I didn't learn much in terms of money management from our parents. I mean, they definitely shared some principles here and there, but they never took the time to specifically hone in on the importance of saving and debt management and, credit and all of that stuff. So for example, how I know that they did talk to us about money is that we had piggy banks growing up. So we would get, piggy banks of Disney characters. I remember I had a Sleeping Beauty piggy bank and a 101 Dalmatians piggy bank. So obviously there were sprinkles of money in our childhood. I don't really remember what the conversations were around those. I do remember the piggy banks and how fun it was to, put pennies and quarters in there. But we also made money through chores and stuff like that. So we learned you work for something, you get paid. So there, again, were some principles there, but we didn't learn about debt. We didn't learn about credit. We didn't learn about the importance of saving. And I am not alone in that. Most of us didn't learn from our parents, but one thing I know I learned from watching my parents was that if you worked hard, you can have money. So both of my parents were hard workers. My dad being a business owner, my mom being in corporate. I saw them going to work every day, and I must have in my young mind attributed that to, okay, if you go to work every day, then you come home and you have everything you need. And I know that has stuck with me till this day. It's still a belief I have because in my core, I truly believe, if you work hard, things will work out. I'm just now starting to open my mind to the notion of you can be financially well off and not have to break your back working so hard to make that a true statement. That's definitely a bigger mental fish for me to fry. That's a mindset shift I need to continue to look into because up until this point, it's always been work hard and you'll make money. But you don't always have to work so hard to make money. And I think that's where like the wealthy in our society have figured it out. So I'm working through that, more to come there. But a few of the other very specific financial experiences I had before I turned 18 over financial education. So these experiences shaped how I thought, act, or, attributed my decisions with money. So I had the experience of paying for my own car before I turned 18. In the last podcast episode, I shared how, the car that I got for my 16th birthday was totaled, and the next car I got, I had to pay for on my own. I literally had to write checks every month to make the car payment, and this was before I turned 18. So I've experienced owning my own car and, going through that application process. I'm sure my mom likely co-signed or something like that, but I went through all of that and I remember it. I have experienced working and having a stack of cash to show for it. So I worked in restaurants from the time I was 16 through probably 19. Like my first real job wasn't retail, it was in restaurants. And so you get cash tips. So I would always have a stack of cash. And I had it in this leopard animal print little box. Don't ask me why I mentioned that, but I remember that. So that was a vivid experience of, hey, you work and you get money. And then I experienced not being able to buy something because I didn't have the money. So there were plenty of times where I would ask my parents for something and they would say no, or they would say, wait until you save up enough money to buy it. So those situations definitely played in my head before I turned 18. But when I got to college, all bets were off. I think before college, I had experienced a lot of, telling yourself no, or hey, if you don't have the money, don't buy it, or hey, you got to pay your bills on time. I learned a lot of good things through my financial experiences before college, but when I got to college, it all went downhill. I wasn't given money for college, so whatever I had earned was what I had to spend until I got credit cards. And the first credit card I got, I was 18. And when you have a credit card, especially being so young and being at a place mentally where you have this thought process of if you don't have the money, don't spend the money. Well, when you have credit, you technically have the money. I mean, you really don't. You're being loaned the money, but you don't understand that concept, or at least I didn't. Nobody explained that to me. So when I got my credit card, that was an extra, it was a $300 limit. That was an extra $300 I had to spend. And you get one credit card and you bank your payments, then you get approved for another one, or you get a higher credit limit. And if you don't really know what you're doing, you don't understand the repercussions of using that credit limit, it can get out of hand quickly. And that's what happened to me. At this point though, so from 18 until 21, I was learning about finance because my degree is in finance. I was taking classes about personal finance, financial analysis, corporate finance, accounting, and so much more. And maybe it was just the content and the lessons, maybe it was the teachers, but none of it applied to my current life as a young college student. So I learned it, memorized it because I needed to pass the class, but I never implemented it. And that's a shame, but that's just the reality of my situation. While I had financial education up until this point because of, the degree that I had, my financial experiences are really what shaped my actions and decisions and thought processes around money. During this time, so in my college years, I had the stress and anxiety of interest and growing debt balances. So, I opened all these credit cards, not really understanding, interest and, minimum payments. And so before I knew it, the balances were out of control. Interest was being accrued. I couldn't afford the minimum payments. It was a lot. I also experienced the ability to live on less because if there is nothing to spend, meaning no money in the bank, no available credit, you have to make do until more comes in. So you got to tell yourself no. You got to stay at home. You got to eat what you have in the fridge and the pantry and just ride it out until more money comes in. I experienced the ease of obtaining credit, especially being so young. And this is definitely a problem in our society, but it was so easy for me to open credit cards and get credit limits. And it shouldn't have been that easy, but it was. I experienced the ease of spending money you don't have because I had these credit cards and this false sense of I have money because of this credit limit. I was just constantly swiping until, I couldn't swipe anymore because there was no more credit available. I experienced the importance of paying your bills on time. So this was something I had learned, when I was back in Austin before college because I had my car payment, but it didn't stick as heavily as it should have because I almost got evicted because I didn't pay my rent on time. So that was a big learning experience. I have experienced the importance of paying your credit card bills and paying them on time. So one thing I will say I pride myself on, especially during this trying time, was I always made my credit card payments on time. And I thinking back, I'm like, wow, if I had only known how good that was. And because of that, it has contributed significantly to my 800 plus credit score. I mean, the most important thing I did was pay down my debts, but not having late payments also allowed me to get into that high credit score rating because payment history is such a huge part of your score. So your credit worthiness definitely comes in handy when applying for more cards or even for like your own apartment. I experienced the importance of budgeting. I learned it took me 1.5 paychecks to cover my rent. And so that meant that I had to really make the remaining half a paycheck work for all of my bills and expenses. I learned the importance of having a savings. One time I had to call my dad to help my best friend get her car out of impound because I didn't have the money and she didn't have the money. We were broke. I think we had just graduated college, so we weren't even in college. Just a shame. But all of those experiences, mostly negative, taught me a lot and shaped the thoughts and behaviors I have with money today. I only learned these things. So everything that I just walked through that I had learned, I only learned them through the negative experiences I had and not through the financial education I had gained up until this point. So this further solidifies my opinion that financial experiences are more important than financial education or can have more of an impact than financial education. While I absolutely respect my finance degree, I earned it. I definitely learned things. And I feel like my degree does help me feel qualified to talk about money. It really had very little impact on me starting City Girl Savings. In fact, I started City Girl Savings because I knew that if someone like me, so someone who previously had debt and a spending problem and loved to travel and go out to eat and all those things, if someone like me could learn how to budget and save and reach goals and enjoy life at the same time, then I could help other women do the same. So it wasn't, I have a degree in finance, let me start a money company. No, it was, I went through all of these experiences with money and budgeting turned my financial life around. And if I can do it, someone else can do it. So my financial experiences are what shaped City Girl Savings to become the company it is today. And now 9 years since starting City Girl Savings, there are definitely things that I've learned through financial education. I read finance books, I listen to finance podcasts, I read blog articles and all of those things. So I definitely learn through education. Like I've read about backdoor Roths and I read about retirement plan investment options, and those things that I've learned have had an impact on the decisions I've made. So while I do believe that financial experiences trump financial education, you can still learn a lot about money. You can still seek out financial education and learn and implement what you've learned and see results. I know for me, I will always seek out more knowledge. That will never stop, just the person I am. But while that may be the case, and while I may have learned some things through seeking out knowledge, my experiences have shaped a lot of my financial decisions and a lot of the information I teach. So I know up until this point, I have experienced paying off all my debt multiple times. I've experienced getting an 800 plus credit score and maintaining it for years. I've experienced buying a house. I've experienced managing rental properties. I've experienced successful budgeting. I've experienced compound growth from the stock market. So all of those experiences have shaped my financial foundation, if you will. And all that to say, financial education is great. It's wonderful. I encourage you to seek it, but it's not a necessity to have a financially stable, financially free life. Your financial experiences, whether they're good or bad, can shape the decisions you make with your money so that you get to live the life you want. So I hope this episode encourages you to seek more education as it pertains to finance, but also to embrace your financial experiences and learn from them. Learn what to do or learn what not to do. I promise you it will be worth it.